Okay then, this thing has happened, and it was probably going to happen at some point with the cost cap in effect, but I don't think anybody expected it to happen the very first year that the cost cap was in effect. In case you've been living under a rock, Red Bull were found to have breached the 2021 cost cap, and the internet has reacted in exactly the way you'd expect it to. Violently, with a side of anarchy. I mean, it's been bad. Way worse than usual, and I know I need to stay off Twitter and stuff, but doing this kind of stuff on YouTube, I kind of have to be, really. This is why I mostly just post what's going on in my head. The thing is, Red Bull has been found to be in the lower category of cost cap breach, so by that definition they've overspent by less than 5%. The problem is the FIA is, as always, being about as transparent as a 997 square foot slab of lead, so they've not actually said by how much Red Bull has overspent by. It could be anywhere between a penny and roughly $7 million. And because Red Bull is in the lower category of a cost cap breach, they can face a multitude of penalties. Number one being a reprimand, which, FIA terms, that's not actually a penalty, that's just a slap on the wrist and you basically get away with it. But they can face things like having constructors' points taken away, drivers' points taken away, and other concerns. They might have to have their own little cost cap for 2023. Now, if this was someone like Aston Martin, who were found to have not filled in a form properly, it wouldn't be much of a problem. If it was Williams, who were also fined for not filling in a form properly, it wouldn't be a problem there either. McLaren, Alpine, AlphaTauri, any of those teams. But because this is Red Bull and the breach applies to 2021, we're in for a very long and bumpy ride. Now, people often say in these videos I don't really give my opinions, I just sit on the fence, but what I try to do here is give multiple sides of an argument and then let you come to a conclusion. So if I do that, it means that people will think about it from both sides rather than just jumping to one conclusion, which is the conclusion they've already got before they've even clicked on the video. Because let's be honest, it's better than just sitting here and going, Red Bull cheated, give Hamilton his 8th, or stuff like that, in my mind. And the discussion over on my Discord has been pretty civil about it. Everybody's had some good ideas and some good opinions, and people have actually listened to each other talk about it. It's been quite refreshing, actually. Meanwhile, I'm just too tired to do anything. I'm 32 tomorrow. So firstly, let's address that elephant in the room. 2021. That season had already ended under highly controversial circumstances. Circumstances that the FIA themselves have since come out and gone, yes, this was not done within the rules rather than an interpretation thereof, and there's nothing we can do. Which has put a rather sour mark next to the 2021 season, and it's not just from Mercedes and Hamilton fans. I know fans of other teams that also say that the end of the 2021 season was a bit of a farce. Number two is, Red Bull won that Drivers' Championship. So Toto, Binotto and others are going to be saying that by the definition of the rules, Red Bull has cheated. Also with this, Mercedes had to release 60 employees to make sure it complied with the cost cap. Ferrari moved staff around to another department to comply with the cost cap. Mercedes stopped upgrading their car after Silverstone to comply with the cost cap. Ferrari, Mercedes and the other teams will be well within their rights to say every single team has complied with this rule except for one, the team whose driver won the championship. Again, this isn't me saying this is what could potentially be being said behind the scenes. And since it's a minor breach, docking 10 points from Max and Checo and maybe Red Bull as well, so docking from the constructors and the drivers, would bring the universe back into balance as it was. But then that opens up a whole nother can of worms. Lewis would have the 8th title, but it's just the circumstances in which it's been done. It sours that moment, it sours a record being beaten, and it's just the whole farce surrounding this whole cost cap business. On the other side, Red Bull and the fans will be arguing, as they already have, that Silverstone was the reason the cost cap was breached. Mercedes would then probably respond with the fact that they had to put Valtteri's car back together after Russell destroyed it at Imola. Red Bull and Red Bull fans will also cite Spygate as an example of drivers not being penalised, as Hamilton and Alonso were able to keep their points while McLaren was booted out of the championship altogether. But again, there's another side to that argument. Looking at blueprints you shouldn't be looking at and not complying with an FIA mandated cost cap are not the same thing. But the thing is, why has it taken nearly 12 months for this to come to light? Now, I've done financial auditing and compliance before. It's not easy, especially when you're basically dyslexic but with numbers. I mean, I've never been tested, but, you know, I am convinced I've got dyscalculia. But anyway, the FIA is a very powerful entity. You would think that they'd have some way of getting all of this done and signed off and published before, I don't know, March, April? I mean, is this just another way of manufacturing drama? Max has won the title, but now we need to get this thing out of there because we need to get more eyes on the sport. It just looks fucking stupid. So now we need to look at how Toto and Binotto knew about this. There's accusations that Toto's got somebody on the inside, and yes, there is indeed an ex-Mercedes employee working for the FIA. An ex-Ferrari employee was the head of the FIA for several years. An ex-Ferrari employee is the commercial guy at the sport now, and working in the finance department is an ex-AlphaTauri employee. They're everywhere. What happens here is that you've got Red Bull, Mercedes and Ferrari all working in the same business, building racing cars to win world championships. It's like being interested in antiques, old guitars, art, watches, or being in the motor trade. You're going to know what things are going to cost. A 1959 Gibson Les Paul, for instance, it's going to be, what, 750,000 in good condition? $1 million if it's one that's been used by an actual artist on an actual record? The Formula 1 teams are going to know roughly what a new front wing is going to cost in terms of R&D, what it's going to cost in materials, what it's going to cost in this department or that department, and you can build up an estimate of what all this is going to cost. Same way you can estimate building the cost of a computer, right? Graphics card is going to be this much, CPU is going to be this much, motherboard is going to be this much, estimated cost, boom, there it is. There was also an Italian newspaper that started this whole Red Bull has overspent thing anyway, so it had nothing to do with the biased British media this time. But then there's claims that this overspend wasn't done on the car, but more to do with catering and hospitality or something like that. But the only place I've actually seen this was on one of those parody accounts that put it out there, and now everybody's lapping it up as if it is actually true, despite it not being mentioned by anybody else. Not by the race, not by the BBC, not by Sky, not by F1, not anybody. But, you know, come on, Tesco meal deals, £3.50 or £3 with a club card. Get enough points to be able to get one of those wind-up torches from the petrol station afterwards. Jokes aside, this isn't going to be a quick fix. There's going to be protests from all sides and it's going to go on for a while. Most likely it'll end up like the secret Ferrari engine deal where we'll never actually know what happened, but on this one occasion, the FIA does need to be transparent about it. So much has been made of these cost caps to try and level the field. Reduce spend, reduce this, do that, carbon, blah blah blah. So if it was all lobbed out with a whisper, it could mean a case of, well, what was the actual point then? Horner still thinks that Red Bull is under the cost cap. He was adamant that they were on Radio 4's Today Show and was very vocal and foot-stompy about getting lawyers involved about the accusations about this so-called open secret that somebody had overspent. Since Monday afternoon, he's been a little quiet, but he did say that it was a surprise that it ended up this way. While Matteo Binotto reckons that even the smallest of breaches should be dealt with harshly because just $1 million is worth a tenth of a second, and that could make a difference in the long run. Tenth of a second a lap. After 10 laps, that's a second. So anyway, this has been a thing that's happened in the world of motorsport, and this has been my opinions and things on that particular thing. If this thing has made you think things about the thing, then do like this thing so the algorithm can do its thing. And if you want to see more things from this channel, subscribe to this thing so you never miss out on anything that I do around here. Massive thanks to the patrons over at Patreon, and if you want to support me on a more personal level to help me buy up images for these videos, you can help out by following the link in the description where there's links to socials, Discord, and also super thanks down there if you want to buy me a beer or whatever. I mean, it is my birthday tomorrow after all. So until next time, I've been Aidan Millward. Have a cracking day wherever you live in the world, and it is actually lunchtime, ironically. So until next time, goodbye.